The night sky over Entebbe was silent, but something unseen was moving beneath it. A convoy of Israeli C-130s sliced through the African darkness, flying low and radio silent. The world believed this was just another hostage crisis. In reality, it was the latest secret story, 2 decades in the making. Starting in the shadows of Africa's independence wars, before we dive in, tell me where you are watching from and what time it is. While you are here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. In the 1,950 seconds and 60 seconds, as empires fell and flags changed, Israel understood that Africa was a battlefield of ideas. To Tel Aviv, the mission was existential, surrounded by hostile states. Israel used Mossad to carve a place in Africa's future, preventing Cairo or Damascus from deepening Israel's global isolation. Under the cover of agricultural advisors and technical experts, hundreds of Mossad officers were dispatched to Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia. On paper, these were development programs. In reality, they were intelligence networks designed to shape alliances and counteract Arab propaganda. A bridge of survival. Israeli instructors trained police units and advised presidential guards. Every diplomatic mission doubled as an intelligence post, operating in whispers, while the CIA and KGB competed in plain sight. In Ethiopia, Emperor Haile Selassie allowed Israeli advisors to modernize his army. In return, Israel secured access to the Red Sea, a crucial strategic corridor. From Ethiopian soil, Mossad began its earliest monitoring of Arab military communications. What appeared as a partnership of convenience became one of shared survival. In Uganda, Israel initially trained Idi Amin's paratroopers, believing him a loyal ally. But by the early 1,970 seconds, Amin turned. Embracing Muammar Gaddafi, Israeli diplomats were expelled overnight, burning codebooks before boarding the last flight out as Uganda became a base for anti-Israeli operations. This taught Mossad that Africa's politics were fluid and loyalty was temporary. They doubled down on Kenya, turning Nairobi into a discreet regional listening post. The cooperation was so close that during the Entebbe raid, Kenya allowed Israeli aircraft to refuel, a decisive gesture that saved the mission. In Zaire, Mobutu Sese Seko saw in Israel a mirror of his own survivalist instincts. Mossad assisted his intelligence units in exchange for data on Arab movements. Officially, Israel had agricultural programs there. Unofficially, those agronomists carried transmitters and cameras rather than plows. Mossad also engaged in humanitarian espionage, rescuing endangered Jewish communities in Ethiopia and Sudan. These missions won hearts while opening new intelligence channels. Africa became an invisible battlefield where Mossad's subtlety clashed with the KGB and Arab intelligence, often involving moral dilemmas and support for repressive regimes. By the late 1,960 seconds, over 30 nations had ties with Tel Aviv. Mossad's presence expanded as shadow partners, training African leaders in secret security consultations. The continent's intelligence community was shaped by Israeli methodology, emphasizing agility and deception. But every success planted a seed of danger as Arab states grew alarmed. Libya's Gaddafi poured money into exposing Mossad cells while Sudan became a corridor for arms transfers to Palestinian factions. Mossad found itself hunted in its own territory. One internal report described Africa as a rehearsal ground. It was here that Mossad refined techniques like deep cover agents and front companies later used worldwide. Behind the curtain, every development project had an intelligence dimension. When engineers built irrigation systems, they also mapped terrain and assessed local leadership. As the 1,970 seconds dawned, the facade cracked. The Yom Kippur War and the oil embargo forced many African states to sever ties with Israel. Embassies closed and advisors were withdrawn. Yet Mossad refused to vanish. remaining under commercial covers to maintain contacts with loyal African officers. This dual reality, official isolation but clandestine presence, became the essence of the hidden war. The agency no longer sought recognition. It sought reach. Mossad became a ghost in the house, moving between factions and arms dealers. Their priority was preventing Iran and Arab states from using Africa as an arms corridor. Operatives mapped threats through Sudan and the Horn of Africa, tracing shipments between Middle Eastern financiers and African warlords. Disguised as Western contractors, Israeli agents tracked Libyan couriers in Khartoum. Mysterious explosions near warehouses soon followed, with no one claiming responsibility. In Ethiopia, the fall of the emperor allowed Mossad to reinsert itself under the cover of famine relief during the mid-1980s. Aid by day, intelligence by night. They extracted thousands of Ethiopian Jews in Operation Moses, bribing local officials and mapping Sudanese infrastructure that would prove vital in future strikes. Further south, Israel and apartheid South Africa formed a strange partnership of survival, trading weapons technology for uranium and intelligence on Libyan activities. Mossad agents trained South African commandos, while Nairobi's ports became hubs for regional logistics and communications intercepts. In Zaire, Mobutu's personal security received training through Mossad intermediaries. Front companies in mining and construction served as masks for information collection. In 1986, a Libyan courier vanished in the Sahara. His body was found poisoned and his documents missing, bearing every hallmark of a clean Mossad hit. These documents detailed funding to militant groups in Lebanon. Within months, those networks began to collapse under the weight of Mossad's invisible pressure. Not all went well. In 1988, a premature detonation during a sabotage mission in Sudan killed civilians, forcing a temporary withdrawal of assets. Still, Mossad established cyber listening posts in East Africa, using radio intercepts to anticipate arms shipments moving through the Red Sea routes. Containment of Iran became a growing motive. Israeli operatives traced Iranian diplomats in Sudan and Nigeria, believing they concealed revolutionary intelligence operations. Schools and hospitals became the new fronts in an ideological war. In Sudan, Mossad built a massive network of smugglers and tribal chiefs on its payroll. Arab agencies intensified their hunt for Mossad assets. Informants were executed and some operatives vanished from the records. Their families told nothing. The agency began using double-blind handlers, where agents didn't even know they were working for Israel, turning Africa into a school for asymmetric warfare. By the end of the 1980s, Mossad's network was an adaptable organism embedded in the power structures of a shifting continent, but leaders began to resent the price of protection. Mossad often acted independently, embarrassing hosts and turning partners into suspicious observers. As the 1990s approached, Israel pivoted toward formal diplomacy, but the blood-built networks remained dormant, ready to reawaken when the world changed. The collapse of the Soviet Union left power vacuums. Mossad moved quickly to reclaim its ground under new names and new alliances. Emissaries visited Lagos and Kigali as businessmen and security consultants. The game hadn't changed. Only the cover stories had. Access to the Red Sea remained the goal. Mossad re-established contacts in Eritrea to monitor Iranian presence in Yemen and Sudan. Waiting for threats to reach Israel's borders was a mistake. Africa offered the perfect stage for preventive action and preemptive strikes. In the early 2000s, Sudan became a transit hub for Iranian weapons. Mossad launched covert strikes on Sudanese soil, targeting warehouses and convoys. Between 2009 and 2012, mysterious explosions rocked Khartoum. The Yarmouk weapons factory was destroyed, and Sudan's accusations were met with Israeli silence. Sudan served as an intelligence laboratory, mapping smuggling routes through the Sinai that fed Hamas supply lines in Gaza. In post-genocide Rwanda, Israeli experts trained local units in stabilization, officially for peacekeeping, unofficially to monitor French and Iranian movements. In the DRC, old contacts remained eyes and ears on resource deals. The diamond trade was monitored for its links to global militant financing. Private security firms, staffed by ex-Mossad veterans, began operating openly, specializing in counter-terrorism and risk analysis. These firms became deniable assets. Through them, Israel projected influence and collected data without any official footprints. After 9/11, Israel's counterterrorism expertise was in high demand. Mossad worked with the CIA, but Africa remained the private backroom for sensitive operations. In Kenya, Israeli agents helped foil al-Qaeda plots after the 1998 embassy bombings. The partnership between Nairobi and Tel Aviv became permanent. In 2002, after the Mombasa hotel attacks, Mossad's presence intensified, integrating drones and surveillance into East Africa's security architecture. But sharing intelligence with repressive regimes brought controversy. Israeli advisors were accused of enabling domestic crackdowns in exchange for strategic access. For Mossad, stability always came before ethics. By the late 2000s, the shadow war with Iran reached a fever pitch across the continent. Targeted eliminations became a common tool. The 2010 assassination of Mahmoud al-Mabhouh in Dubai was tied to a weapons route that started in Sudan. Mossad's footprint stretched from desert roads to luxury hotels, always tracing the flow of Iranian hardware destined for the Levant. When South Sudan gained independence in 2011, Israeli firms poured in, turning the new nation into a forward base for gathering intelligence in the Nile region. By the 2010 seconds, field operations evolved into digital dominance. Israel invested heavily in cyber and signals intelligence across the continent. Exports of cybersecurity and spyware became the new bridge. Companies like NSO Group became extensions of Israeli intelligence philosophy. The goal was total information control. African states became both clients and subjects of an ecosystem they didn't fully understand. Governments bought software to catch criminals, unaware that Mossad used these deals to map metadata and identify regional opportunities. Even during the normalization of the Abraham Accords, Mossad maintained its ghost networks, ensuring the handshake at the table was backed by leverage in the field. The 2020 deal with Sudan was the culmination of decades of sabotage and secret negotiations, a victory for the invisible hand. Today, Mossad operates under layers of deniability. Officially, it's about agriculture and tech. Unofficially, it's an intelligence pipeline. From the Sahel to the Red Sea, they continue to watch and influence, but the cost of this hidden war is a growing sense of suspicion among the African public. Some see Israel as a shield against extremism, others as an extension of Western intervention. In truth, the reality is a mix of both. Mossad's legacy is a paradox of protection and manipulation, partnership and betrayal. Buried in the red dust of the continent, Africa was a classroom for Mossad, teaching them how to turn isolation into opportunity and chaos into cover. They learned that the most valuable weapon isn't firepower. It's access to hearts, fears, and decision-makers. From the mountains of Ethiopia to the boardrooms of corporate giants, the wars they waged never made headlines, but they defined Israel's global reach. As China and Russia enter the new arena for African competition, Mossad remains in the background. Adapting and observing, they are ready to strike when necessary. Because in the world of intelligence, wars don't end. They only change form. Every embassy closure and every coup was just another chance to reinvent the network. Staying one step ahead of the shadows, Africa taught the agency to operate without uniforms and without footprints. And sometimes, without a conscience. The dual reality of diplomatic noise and secret arteries of intelligence became the standard operating procedure for the modern era. Israeli engineers building irrigation systems were the same eyes, mapping the terrain for potential commando raids. Doctors offering medical aid were assessing the stability of local leadership structures for the analysts in Tel Aviv. Soft power was systematically turned into spycraft, making Israel a silent partner in the governance of multiple African states. The invisible battlefield where ideologies clash without headlines continues to evolve with every new piece of technology. Mossad's strength has always been its subtlety, embedding itself so deeply that it cannot be removed without collapsing the system it monitors. From the rescue of Jewish communities to the assassination of arms smugglers, the mission remains a singular pursuit of national survival. The Classroom of Africa provided the methodology for operations later conducted in the heart of Europe and the Middle East. The dual-blind handlers and the cell structures developed in Sudan are now the blueprint for global covert activities. Every handshake in a brightly lit capital is the result of a whisper in a dark corridor years prior. The ghosts of Mossad are among the most experienced in the world, navigating the shifting sands of global loyalty with cold calculation. As the digital age matures, the wires and radio towers are replaced by code and algorithms. But the objective remains the same: total awareness, total reach, and the ability to strike before the enemy even knows a war has begun. Africa remains the mirror of the Middle East, unpredictable, fragmented, and essential to the survival of the state. Behind every secret is a sequel, and behind every ally is a potential betrayal waiting for the right price. This is the story of the invisible hand, moving across a continent, shaping history without ever showing its face. If you found this journey through the secret history of spy wars fascinating, you know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the declassified stories coming. Stay tuned for the next episode, because every secret has a sequel. This is the Digital Sleuth, signing off from the shadows.